can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
We've got some huge breaking news, but we're just waiting for Ben Forom to call in. Huge news about Ben.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it'll go over well with the myriad of followers that he's managed to garner since he's been on. You cannot be serious. But Wayne,
how long have you been doing? You've been doing this for how long? 6 years.
Yeah, not good at it.
You're still.
That's
Is
right.
the red? So we're recording right now.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay.
If that ever goes green, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I spoke to someone I spoke with you. We spoke for 45 minutes. And I said, I don't think we've recorded this.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So Wayne, I actually, on Friday night, or was it Thursday, I texted you.
Yes, you did.
I am staggered. Now, look, I know I'd like someone to come on here who is a current employee, a current employer on one of the media channels or Rights Football, and sit there and tell me that our game hasn't degenerated into a rolling pack, a rolling mall of nonsense, and the great exploits of our game and it's the way it's played is just disintegrated. The games are shocking. They're exciting because they're close.
Yeah,
the skills, the game to watch is it is unwatchable, and I would like someone to come and tell me why back in the day, even 20 years ago, I would like someone to tell me why our game has degenerated into crap.
Well, there are some teams that are crap to watch.
They're all crap to watch.
No, there are a couple of teams that are good to watch. Hawthorn are good to watch. GWS are good to watch. And I tell you who, and albeit they're only playing Melbourne. When I say that, geez, haven't Melbourne been disappointing?
Yeah.
But the reason why Melbourne, so the Gold Coast is a team I was going to say who, the way they move the ball, and by the way, they kicked 20 goals or whatever they kick. So
who against?
When you kick against Melbourne.
Yeah, exactly.
At the MCG. So they haven't won a game.
That St Kilda beat someone by 70 points, and people said, gee, St Kilda are great.
Richmond.
St Kilda were no better than Richmond.
Well, by the way, that game was kick and a half at half time and then ended up being, nearly.
And it's the way the game's played. Now, I want to ask you this question. I watched North Melbourne down at Tasmania. No, I'm sorry.
No, you watched Hawthorn in Tasmania.
No, I watched North Melbourne in Adelaide.
Adelaide, yes.
Tell me this.
Yep.
There was 9 minutes to go, and they were 6 goals down.
Yep.
And North Melbourne, I watched this. The fullback would get it, he'd chip it over there. Then they'd chip it. They kept chipping the ball around the half back line with no intention of kicking the ball down forward to try and actually win the game.
Yeah, I agree.
What is that about? Who is that, a coach? Or is that just because it's indented now, inbred into how you play football?
You would have to...
That you keep possession?
No, that would have to be... That can't be a coach thing. If that's a coach thing, then that's the wrong coaching. Because as you know, if you are... I always had a theory, Sam, and I think Mick Moldhouse... I know Lee Matthews said if, a goal a minute... If you're 5 goals down and there's 5 minutes to go, you can still win the game. Well, as a player... I always thought that you could always win the game. Even if we were 10 goals down with 6 minutes to go, I thought, you know what, we can do it. It's a front, but if you're being coached, if you're 5 goals down and you're being coached like that, then that is clearly the wrong way. You're about to go onto the phone, are you? No, so I dare say that they. By the way, I didn't watch it closely because I was actually in a meeting, believe it or not, Sunday afternoon.
I can tell you all about it. I watched it all.
And I was in the background. So what I did see, and you're right, the chipping of the ball when the player can't play on. So what I mean by that is if you chip it to the side and then that player gets held up, what's the point of chipping it there in the first place?
I've been saying this for
especially when it goes 10 metres. So you haven't shifted any defence. You haven't done anything. You've done absolutely nothing.
So why did they do it?
Well, it's a good point. The only thing you can do is stuff it up. That's the only thing you can do.
So I watched the game down with the strong gale blowing down in Tasmania.
Tassie. Yep.
Who do they play?
GWS.
So here's
Hawks,
my thing.
GWS.
Wouldn't the strategy, why would you play on when you're kicking into the wind? Why don't you do exactly that? Chip the ball around, run the clock down so that you don't give the other side an opportunity to get the ball and drive it down 60 metres with every kick. Why not hold the ball up, frustrate them? That's when you don't play on into the wind. And tell me this, here's another simple feature of life in football. Never leave your man to go and tackle someone else's. Because as soon as you leave your man, then you start the automatic hand pass over someone's head and you start the running game. Simple things about football.
I want to change tact a little bit.
Thank you.
And I like to say that because that's what you do when you're on a sailboat. There was a lot of wind in Tassie. So the reason why GWS got off to an absolute flyer. They were 6 goals up, 5 or 6 goals up, blowing a gale down there. Yep. And then the Hawks. So as soon as the Hawks adapted at half time and then scored into the wind and obviously halted GWS's scoring with the wind, the game was over because Hawthorn had the wind in the last quarter, and it was all she wrote from that point on. The Hawks are looking very, very good. They've got, they remind me, what they remind me of? They remind me a little bit of Richmond in the years that they won their 3 flags with when Jack Rewalt was their sole big forward, but everyone else they had this mosquito fleet.
Just a minute. I think this is the doc.
What? So you get into me about taking calls?
No, this is the doc calling. Hello? Sue, come here. What? Roadcaster. Hello? Oh, Jesus. Hello?
Hello, mate.
Hey, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, now, Doc, I haven't forewarned. I said there's a huge announcement to be made, and the Duck's here.
Hello, Ben.
Hey, Duck. How are you,
buddy?
mate?
Yeah, very good.
Are we rolling or what? Are we underway?
We're on. We're on.
We're on.
And I said we're waiting for you to call in with huge breaking news, and much to the dismay of this huge audience that you've garnered, we've been nobbled.
No, well,
you've nobbled us.
Let me g'day to everyone, by the way.
No one knows what the news is, but
look, it's not major news. And let me say this to Duck, so I don't get too emotional while talking to Sam. But you'll understand this, Wayne. When you've got a contract with someone, they expect certain things of you. You would know that through your time playing football and also working in television. When you've got a contract with someone, they expect certain things of you. And if you then start giving away those services to others free of charge, sometimes they can start asking questions. Namely, why are we paying you all this money if you're doing this for someone else and not for us?
We can pay.
I know. So what's happened is Nine, the company that I work for, they have a podcasting business called Nine Podcasting.
Yep.
So they have put it to me that if I've got so much spare time that I can afford to appear on Sam Newman's podcast every couple of weeks, then surely I've got time to, on top of my radio show and on top of my family commitment, to produce a podcast for Nine Podcasting. I've then said to them, look, I just don't have time in my schedule at the moment for that. They've then said to me, mate, if you've got time for Sam Newman, you've got time for us, and we want a Ben Forom podcast on the Nine Podcasting platform. So what it's led me to do, Wayne, is to say to Sam, I think I'm going to... No, I just said, look, and I think what it is they just don't want me doing it regularly. So if, for example, Sam, in a month from now, if Sam said, hey, I think Ben's coverage of that certain topic was really interesting, or it's a federal election this weekend and we want Nine Radio's Ben Fordham to come on and talk about it, then I think we can make arrangements. But I think I've got to just take a step back from the fortnightly gig for now, because otherwise what it's going to do is they've said to me, look, mate, if you want to continue with it, we want a podcast. So we want a podcast that's made by me every single week to be released by Nine Podcasting. So I just thought, and I don't know, Wayne, you might have been in these situations before where there's a little bit of an arm wrestle going on, and I just said, look, I'll just explain to Sam that for the moment I can't do the fortnightly spots. That's where I've arrived at.
There are some fights you want to pick. and there's some fights you walk away from, and that's one. Sam, you were.
Here's a man who's just told us he's had more brawls and hot dinners at pubs. He just told us in the previous segment that he used to fight every other day in a pub, brawl out onto the street.
That's what you did in Wagga when you were a kid.
Well, and look, it's I've always had pretty good relationships with my bosses, so it's. Not all of them, but the ones I do have a relationship with now, the bosses that I've got, they're also friends of mine, and they've just kind of said to me, mate, can you just see it from our point of view that we've got a business to run as well, and unless you're volunteering to take a pay cut, we do pay you well, and we expect you to be available to 9 audio business, which is radio and podcasting. So I just thought, rather than all of a sudden me thinking, all right, now I've got to make a podcast that's going to compete with Sam Newman and Wayne Carey, I think I'd be better just to take a bit of a break. And of course, and I've said this to them, look, Sam might call me on a case-by-case basis. I just wouldn't have a regular part on his show. And they said, well, that's fine, but we just think that if we're paying you this money. And look, Sam, I just decided to reflect just before jumping on the line, because I looked back. Do you know how long I've been appearing on your podcast?
Well, you've
without a brass razoo.
Five. Well, we can pay. Just let me
5
say,
years.
5
years.
15 minutes every fortnight. We really appreciate it. 15 minutes. No wonder 9 have got the. They're very worried that you're on 15 minutes every fortnight.
Now he becomes he's already been an impact player, but he becomes a bigger impact player.
Yeah. Well, what happened, Wayne? I mean, I don't want to turn it into This Is Your Life and a history of the You Cannot Be Serious podcast, but I'm a listener. I mean, I listen to all of Sam's podcasts. I always have, always will. I just find it very, very entertaining and interesting. And I was listening, and I just sent him a text. I was just going back to our text, and I sent him a note just saying, look, the podcast is fantastic. There's nothing like it out there. And then he said, do you want to come on? So I think that was, from what I can see on my messages here, that was October 2020. So, we've had 5 years. We've had Mike Sheehan. We've had Don Scott. I was Don's doctor there for a while in trying to sort out some of his problems. And I'm not usually one to wave the white flag, but I had to wave the white flag on Don and let him go. I've got myself involved in all sorts of shenanigans behind the scenes, because when Don left, I was calling Don saying you can't go. And I think it's been made a little bit easier, Wayne, by you turning up, because I said to Sam, the moment you turned up, I said, well, now you've got a proper co-host, so as opposed to some bloke who calls in for 15 minutes on the phone every fortnight. So I know the podcast is going to remain strong. I'll always be listening to it. And I hope that from time to time you need me for something and you say, hey, mate, I need you to talk about this particular topic that you've been talking about on 2GB, and therefore, obviously, if we're promoting the 2GB radio show, then I can argue that it would be in that capacity that I would be appearing
talk about
infrequently.
Talk about this. This was on your radio show, and I've just brought it up with the Duck, who had some extraordinary explanation. You did about Tubia, about the people who have taken, the indigenous folk who have taken over Tubia, and it's been ceded to them by the council or someone. What's that about? This is where we can't go to Kakadu anymore.
No. Well, Kakadon't, they call it now. Kakadon't. Because when you go to Kakadu, I spoke to a tourism operator last week, and he said it's so embarrassing. You get these Aussies who spend thousands of dollars, grey nomads, or they're flown in with the kids and the grandkids, and this is their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see Kakadu, and then you've got to tell them, no, you're not allowed to go to that part, and you're not allowed to go to this part, and you're not allowed to go there. I mean, we've now put together a list of all of the places that you're not allowed to go to. Even Lake Eyre in South Australia, the famous Lake Eyre. There are now restrictions in Lake Eyre where they say, oh, no, you can't possibly go boating on Lake Eyre.
We did that on the podcast with you a couple of years ago. Yep.
Yeah, you've got Kakadu, and you've got a whole range of other ones as well.
Mount Panorama.
They're trying it on at Mount Panorama, Mount Warning in New South Wales, Mount Biwa in Queensland. They tried it on there. And
Ayers Rock.
It's up to all of us to say enough is enough on these things, and say that you can be respectful to our Indigenous brothers and sisters, as I always am, always have been, always will be, while also saying we're not going to stop people from going somewhere. I mean, if I was walking down the street and there were, 100 people and they all wanted to go and have a look at a beautiful sunset or something, and there was 2 or 3 people standing out the front saying, no, you can't go here for no good reason, you'd say, mate, get out of the way. Let people do their thing. I mean, in this day and age, I think that we want all Australians to be able to access all of the country and not be told you can't go to that beach, you can't climb that mountain, you can't go and view that sunset or sunrise. If we want the beauty of Australia to be on display, we should be showing it at all times, and that's the argument of many Indigenous people who don't agree with what's going on around the country at the moment, and they say, yes, this is a sacred place. It's so sacred that we want to share it with everyone around the world. We want everyone to come
Go on,
and see
Duck, give in the stuff about sticking the flag in someone's land when you get here.
Well said. I tell you what, talking about sunsets, just last year, just after the grand final, I went to Broome. Have you ever seen that sunset at Broome?
No.
Oh,
I'd
Cable Beach. Yeah. So you sit up there in a nice restaurant and
some
you
butterfly
look straight,
wings and aspic jelly.
But the sunset, because Cable
and
Beach goes for kilometres. It goes for miles and miles and miles, and how beautiful is that sunset?
Have you seen the dinosaur footprints in the rocks?
Yes, saw all of that, Sam. And
you won't be allowed to go there soon, Doc.
Well, I can tell you there are a lot of people who are now joining this campaign because we shared a podcast on it over the weekend, and I don't think I've seen engagement like this before, where we've had 3.7 thousand people share the post. So that's not people who've just commented on it or read it. They've decided we want to share this with others, and it's called Locked Out. Iconic locations now off limits. Kakadu, Cape York, Lake Eyre, Bunda Cliffs, Finnis River, Grampians, Flinders Ranges, Mount Gillen, Mount Warning. So it's been shared 3,700 times. It attracted more than 3,000 comments over the course of the weekend. That tells me that the movement's on, the mob's decided, come on, these people are having a lend of us, and we want to be reasonable about where we can go. I mean, I think all of us, unless there's a danger, if someone said, hey, listen, we don't want your kids walking there because the path is vulnerable or there are rocks falling down the cliff, sure, well, I won't go there, but otherwise we want to go.
Did you mention Ayers Rock? You're not allowed to climb up that.
Well, you hit a golf ball off Ayers Rock, didn't you?
I did. It's my rock as much as anyone else's. I got enjoyment out of doing that. I sent you a photo of me doing that.
Well, I'm ashamed to say I've never been to Ayers Rock. I've seen it from the sky, but I'll tell you what.
You're not allowed to walk up it anymore. They even had a handrail up at a third of it.
Yeah, do they say that you're not allowed, or they ask you not to?
No, you're not allowed.
Yeah, I don't think
you're not allowed.
No.
What, have they got a fence around the whole thing, and they got barbed wire?
I think they've got a little hut that you've got to go through a turnstile, or you can't get up it unless you go up the only way that you can climb up, and they've got a handrail next to it.
You know, there's a bloke I'm interviewing in the next week. He calls himself Your Online Brother, right? And he's an Indigenous bloke who is spreading a message to other Indigenous people to say, listen, every white person is not our enemy, and this whole black versus white thing and us versus them has got to stop.
We've been saying this for years. I have been saying this.
Hearing it from an Indigenous bloke, I think, is pretty special. So I've tracked him down and said, look, I want to do an interview with you. And, yeah, that's what he calls himself. You'll find him online called Your Indigenous Brother. Your Online Brother, my apologies, Your Online Brother. And he says, look, we're all the same. We all bleed the same. We've all got the same blood inside our veins. So can we stop this us versus them, and can we stop pretending that every white person is here to start a battle or cause problems for us?
Exactly what we've been saying.
There are plenty. And see, these comments all fit with my Indigenous mates. You know, like my Aboriginal mates don't go around saying, I don't want you to be able to go somewhere, or I want to be able to claim the top of Mount Panorama. They hear those things and they're embarrassed by it. So that's why I want to give a platform to Your Online Brother, because he speaks a lot of sense.
And now, Doc, it's the very fact that you've done a podcast on this, you've obviously done one with Nine, have you, about all those places you're not allowed to go to, and you've got 3,500 hits or people commenting on it. That's exactly why we like you to come on here every fortnight.
Let me float this one.
Let me float this one. Get the benefit of all your great insight ever again.
That's all right. Let me float this one, right? This is a story we've broken this morning. and it's a candidate in the upcoming election. Now, she's in trouble because of a joke that she told, right? So I'm going to tell you the joke, and you guys tell me whether you think it's a problem or not. Now, her name is Nicolette Buller, right? She's an independent Climate 200 candidate taking on the Liberal Party in a seat in Sydney. And what happened, someone wrote to me last night and said, look, Nicole has been banned from her local hairdressing salon for telling a joke to a 19-year-old hairdresser that was inappropriate. And they said, imagine it was a man telling this joke and you tell me whether it would be appropriate, right? So keep that in mind as you hear it, because I don't think there's anything wrong with what she said. It'd be the type of thing that I'd say in a heartbeat and I wouldn't think twice. But basically, she just had her hair washed and her hair done, and then she turned around to the female hairdresser and said, that felt so good, and I didn't even have sex with you. So this is to a 19-year-old female hairdresser. Anyway, the head of the salon has now banned her from ever going back there and sent her a letter saying, I don't want my staff objectified in this way or spoken to in that way. Now, Nicole, the candidate, says to me in a statement, it was a poor attempt at humour and I've apologised. Everyone deserves to feel respected in their workplace and I will do better. But I don't know. Would you guys blink? Would you think twice if someone said, "Oh boy,
well, mate, of course,
that was so good. That felt so good, and we didn't even have sex."
It's a rhetorical question. Of course, I mean, this is the woke nature of people being condescendingly pretending with the cow eyes to be offended about every single thing that people do or say in the community. This is contrived virtuosity. She should be ashamed of herself, that stupid woman, the hairdresser. And Nicolette, that is so inoffensive that in fact it's humorous.
So even though she's a Climate 200 teal candidate, Sam, you don't care about that. You're making your call based on the substance of the matter, and that is a joke's a joke and it's no big deal. And look,
is this Nicolette?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know her sexuality. I don't know whether she's straight or whether she's gay or whether I've got no idea whatsoever. I don't know whether, I suppose those things come into it to a degree as well. If it was a man aged in his 50s or his 60s saying to a female hairdresser, boy, that felt good and we didn't even have sex, then it would be grubby, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, Nicolette, she's in the teals and I hope she doesn't get in because they're completely useless, the teals. I'm just saying Nicolette shouldn't be banned or ostracised because of that, and I'm in full support of her.
Yeah, not the worst joke we've ever heard, right, Wayne?
Too easy to be offended these days.
Yeah,
just
bloody
far too easy to be offended.
You're offended.
Yeah, and Wayne, can I ask you, mate, how's life? Give me some goss in the in the broader kind of private life and the colourful football identity kind of realm of Wayne Carey. Is there any gossip? You're in love and the little baby's good and everything's well?
Yeah, not too much going on. Sam gets a little bit bored with my life these days.
No, I don't.
A lot of friends used to live through me. Now they're quite happy to stay away, given that I've got an 11-week-old tomorrow who is going very well. Cole, Sam.
Did you catch the wart on the side of Wayne's face? People said now that we're going on, we're filming this on.
You shouldn't pick out ones.
You Cannot Be Serious podcast. They can see Wayne's got a big mole on the side, and people said, "Get that cut off."
It's called a beauty spot.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I know.
Excuse me, Sam. You are not perfect, my friend, and I think that you might have trolls who make those comments online, but we don't need to highlight them and repeat them.
I'd love to see the buff head of the person that actually said it.
Absolutely. I can still recall being at that Billy Joel concert and seeing women right around the stadium there at the MCG nudging each other and saying, "There's Wayne Carey. Wouldn't he give you a good run?" You've got
to do this in context, Doc. The Duck comes in here, he says, "Look at me." He shows his biceps, which he's already done today.
Rubbish.
And he says, "Look, my face is smooth." I said, "Why don't you get that thing cut off the side of your face?" That put him back in the bleachers.
Listen, Wayne, let me see. True or false?
Yep.
Babies are a bit boring.
Well, You know what?
They become. Let me clarify.
Yeah.
They become interesting.
I'll say
right? They become very interesting. But when they're in this phase, and all they do is sleep and poo and cry. I just found it so bloody mind-numbingly boring.
I get in trouble for this, Ben, because obviously the gap. My beautiful 19-year-old daughter Ella, who's 19. So to be fair to say, back 19 years ago, and this is nothing against Ella, but I was in a different stage. I probably didn't spend that baby time with her because I probably had that view and thought, what do babies do? No, but now, and I would say probably from Charlotte, from a very young age, so she's now 10. Carter, I was very hands-on, and Cole, so he started to smile now. So you're getting a little bit of interaction. He hears your voice. He knows where you are.
Might
he hears
be
when
wind.
So I do say this. This isn't me being I'll always be duck, Sam. But I can honestly say that I enjoy each phase of. So baby now, not probably prior to the last 3 weeks, because you're getting that a little bit of interaction. And then as we do as fathers and mothers, we then say, we can't wait for them to crawl. And then they start crawling and you go, oh, geez, I wouldn't mind you going back to not crawling. And then you want them to walk and then they start walking and you go, well, look, I've got to give them more attention now because they can get away from you. So, I actually enjoy all the phases. And I'm loving the phase right now because he knows who Dad is. Yeah, he knows my voice. He's smiling at me. He's laughing. So I'm enjoying that until he starts moving around where you can't do that.
And then it's funny, isn't it? Because then you start fearing like I've got a 5-year-old Goldie, and I'm like, oh God, she's now, like the other day she said, she wanted to go across the road to her friend's house, little Georgie across the road, and I said, yeah. Off you go, and I thought she won't be brave enough to go on her own. Like I was walking her across the road, but she'll want me to walk her up to the front door, right?
Yep.
And she went, bye. Yeah. And I went, ooh, this is slipping away, and then you start having these crazy thoughts about, should we try and put another bun in the oven?
No, but that's why
keep playing catch up.
But Ben, that's why you love each phase. So even last night, Carter. So Carter's just turned 6 now. He's probably getting the effect of, the little one not getting as much attention off mum. So he's been coming to me a lot more now. So he's turning a bit more into a daddy's boy. But he last night said, come on, Dad. So I've been putting him to bed. Now, he's 6 and we're saying he probably should be able to go to bed, we want him to be able to get into bed by himself. But then I laid there with him, so I laid there with him each night now, and I go, you know what, it's only going to be a certain amount of time when you can do this. You've got to enjoy it while you can.
If you've just tuned in, this is the family hour with the duck. This is the family hour with the duck and the doc.
And you know what?
Extraordinary.
You know what? I've loved having this conversation with you, Wayne, because some of us are so in touch with our inner workings and our heart and our soul that we're more than capable of having these conversations. And mate, I'll give you this one before Sam completely goes around the bend. But I had a moment, you remember those little things that happened with you. I was laying in bed with Goldie at one stage, and we're both laying on our back and we're just kind of looking up at the ceiling, and out of nowhere she just taps me on the chest twice.
Yeah.
And she says, my mate.
Oh, how beautiful.
And she looks at me and I was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
And I start, the waterworks start. She goes, and she's looking at me like something's gone wrong. And I just said to her, I'm never going to let you forget what you just did. Yeah. She just tapped me on the chest, my mate, and looked at me out of nowhere.
That's the best. So. I still give Carter, he comes up, drop him to school every day, gives me a kiss before he goes, runs out, says, I love you, Dad. And I go, I love you more.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, like I said.
And see, we've now got Sam right in the right mood now. So when he says goodbye to me, he's not going to get too emotional. No. He's going to show a little bit of heart. He's not going to tell me just to piss off when we say bye.
No, I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this. Is the thing. My daughter, she used to open the door and come out with a dress over her head and say, hello, everyone. And people used to love it. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? I said, she was 32 at the time.
Oh, well, it must run in the family then, Sam. It must run in the family. Now, listen, I'm going to love you and leave you for now. I will talk to both of you soon, and I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who's listened to me on the podcast and given all of that positive feedback. You will hear me between now and the end of the year a few times. There'll be times when Sam might say, come on after the election or before the election or because you've covered a certain topic. But, mate, I've just had a ball talking to you on here, Sam, and it's not goodbye. It's just chill out for a little while.
Au revoir.
I'll talk to you soon. But, mate, what you do here is you give a voice to people who don't always get it. You don't judge everyone based on the mistakes they've made because guess what, mate? We've all made them. So, you know, I've been quite inspired by what Wayne has said on this podcast about, yeah, okay, I've done all that stuff. Some of it I've done, some of it I haven't done. None of it I can change. But ultimately, we're not going to go around spending the rest of our lives kind of categorising people and treating people a certain way because of what they've said in the past or done in the past. I think it's a great exchange of ideas on this podcast and some much needed, overdue, politically incorrect humour. And, mate, Aussies love that stuff. So I really appreciate it, Sam, and I'm looking forward to catching up again soon. And thanks for having me on.
Good on you,
Doc,
Ben.
you are a star, and I appreciate it. I know, that's it. Thank you so much.
Time to say goodbye. Love you, boys.
Hey, mate.
See,
Okay, bye.
He's a star.
he is a star.
He's brilliant.
And make no mistake about
Like
it.
to be just the way, you know, there's people, you can take the headphones off now, Sam. There's people that in this world that articulate themselves in a manner that is easy to listen to and easy to understand. And
That's why he's on.
And they don't ramble on.
No.
And they're succinct in how they speak as well.
That's why
and
he's number one.
He is brilliant at that. It is succinct.
Alan Jones did it.
Superb.
Neil Mitchell did it.
Yeah.
Alan Jones did it. Neil Mitchell did it.
Yep.
The bloke with the golden microphone, how am I going? What's his name? It's just in Sydney. Oh, just forgotten his name. The legend. How is that? I've forgotten his name.
No, I know who you're talking about too. Right.
No. Anyhow, that's why they do what they do because they are articulate and
succinct as well.
That's real worry. I can't think of this bloke's name. He's just finished on 2GB.
John Laws.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah,
Thank you.
go.
Fancy not being able to remember that.
Well, that's what happens with age. You know,
you're spot on. Now, Duck, we were getting into the football, and the way this game is played is a disgrace.
No,
I don't care. And I'd like someone.
There's just some crap. There's some crap games. There always has been. I've said this.
It's the way it's played, mate.
Well, the Melbourne Gold Coast game ended up being a terrible game.
No, but they all are terrible. What about Carlton? All those games, the way it's played, they chip it there, they stop, they look up the ground, then they chip it there, then eventually they kick it to where they should have kicked it in the first place. They're not game to kick it to a contest. They have no strategy about where to kick it when you're driving forward and who to get under the pack and what players to... You've got the two boys from Carlton, the great man who got 800 votes in the Brownlow and another Cripps and the other boy, whatever his name is. They're built like leviathans and no one ever kicks it to them. It's mind-numbing. The best player in the competition at the minute is Sam Darcy.
Yeah, no, well, I wouldn't say he's the best player in the competition. Hey?
Who's the best player in the competition at the minute? Exactly. Because they're all just little diddlers and dapplers.
The best player in the comp at the moment would probably be, and I can't believe I'm saying this because he's a midfielder, but it's probably Matty Rowell, who plays for the Gold Coast Suns.
All right, well, I've never heard of Matty Rowell, but Matty Rowell would get it because he'd be in between the chippy little kicks and he'd be under the pack when it's bounced. Tell me this.
He has been unbelievable, Rowell. Look, the game, I don't disagree with a lot of what you say, Sam. The game is played differently. I agree. They could simplify it. I think the teams that are attacking and are taking the game on, which is teams I mentioned before.
Very few.
That is Hawthorn, GWS and the Gold Coast Suns this year right? Now they've only got one game at the MCG. They've now won that. They don't play there again. So they've won a game away. This might be the arrival of the Gold Coast Suns. They've got a forward.
How many games
young
have they
King.
won? They won them all, have they?
No, well they've just won the games that they're required to win so far. I don't know, 2 or 3. Two or three. I think it's 3. Is it 2? No, 2.
Premier
3, 2. Anyway, they've won all their games.
The first side that changes the paradigm or the way they play football is the one that will prevail. They all play exactly the same style of football.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. And that's why. The simple facts are you've got to play to the cattle that you have.
That's right.
There's no point kicking the ball long, Sam, or getting the ball in quickly if you don't have the targets and all the small forwards to hold the ball in.
Every side has a target.
Compete.
Every side has a couple of targets.
So what you need... What you need
a game plan.
is you need to compete. You need a team that can compete consistently. What we don't have teams that compete consistently.
Because they won't allow them to compete. They won't allow them to kick to a contest.
It's going to sound harsh. I think, this is what I think. I think for a lot of reasons the game is where it is, because and some of it has to do with the fact that you are not allowed to be strong on these players anymore.
That's correct.
And they can have a quiet game, and you're not allowed to tell them that they, weren't very good.
That's correct.
You might upset them, and then
correct.
they'll have a couple of weeks off. And so there's just so many parameters put on coaches now, and then the coaches themselves have become woke, some of them, so they don't want to speak too harshly towards their player, because the player might go into his shell and he mightn't play. It's the world we live in now.
But so it's about changing the world we live in.
What's happened is the tail now wags the dog.
Correct.
That's what's happened to this game.
So if the coach got his charges into the room before the game, he said, boys, during the 100 minutes that we're playing, I might say some things that I won't regret, but they're going to be some home truths about, please don't take it personally away from the game, but I'm here to try and get the best out of you. If I think you're not doing the job, I might ping you out on the ground at quarter time or at half time. How about have a communication with the people you play with and not worry about what the feedback or the rollback or the blowback is? The coaching is the most overrated thing in the world. What coach ever makes a move on a game that on the ground during the course of a game that changes the course of the game? No one.
There's a few.
They're reactionary rather than proactive.
There are a few coaches that do it, but I will say this is we find ourselves in a situation, and I don't know whether, because you're not across it as much as I am, but
I've suddenly become across it.
Harley, yeah, good. So young Harley Reid, you probably heard about him, 19-year-old that plays for West Coast, number 1 draft pick, played last year, is a bit frustrated this year. So he's had more front pages than any person in the history of Western Australia. You might say, well, he's a big fish in a small pond, but he's a 19-year-old. He's under every single footy show is talking about him, and they've all got their opinions, and some are saying, you got Caro saying, leave him alone, he's 19, and you've got Kane saying, well, he's still got to set standards. So there's a wide view of this young boy, and it's sort of, most of them are saying, leave him alone, he's 19 years of age. What I will say, and the reason why I bring this up, not to talk about his form. Well, his form hasn't been great. He's getting frustrated. He's giving away free kicks.
How many games has he played?
Oh, he's played 3. Not even a full season. He played last year, but he played about half of that, and he's played the games this year. But had an interrupted pre-season as well. But in saying all of that, I don't want to talk about him as an individual or what he's doing on the ground. I want to talk about how the coach is treating him. The coach can no longer, so he's a star young player. Everyone thinks he's going to be a superstar, right? That's what everyone thinks. That's, last year they were all saying he's going to be the best thing since Gary Ablett Sr.
The coach is not game to actually tell him some home truths.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Coaches no longer have the ability, because you know why? Because he's over in WA. He's from Victoria, and if they tell him what they really think at the moment, then guess what? He'll pack up and he'll want to come home.
But that's on the coach.
This is correct. That's what I'm talking about. The tail wags the dog now. The coach no longer has the power to enforce
If the coaches,
certain standards and rules. If you're a star player, they don't do
Wayne.
it. Dennis Pagan, Mick Malthouse, these guys, Ross Lyon now. I assume Alistair Clarkson. I don't know whether Clarko's scared to do it now because of what happened with all the racism stuff. But you've still got to have a firm hand on these players. You've still got to tell them what they're doing right, tell them what they're doing wrong, and you've got to be a little bit scared of your coach. Do you reckon the players are scared of their coaches anymore? Not.
You're preaching to the converted,
no, this is
mate.
what I'm saying. This is where it's frustrating for me because, like I said, did you know now you could get 2 or 3 players, if you're 2 or 3 of the better players in the team, and you go to the president or the CEO of your footy club and say, you know what, I don't think I like this coach anymore.
Yep.
You know what? That they would find a way to get rid of the coach. If that happened at Melbourne right now, Goody would be gone. If it happened if Port Adelaide all of a sudden said, "Oh, you know what, we're over, Ken," then he'd be gone before the end of the year.
But that's the weakness of the committee.
That's the weakness
now. If you don't have the top office strong, that's the weakness of the committee. If you were a coach, Wayne, if you were a coach and you had a 19-year-old first-pick boy who was not playing well, surely you'd take him aside and you say, now, Frank, now listen to me, mate. We have absolute faith in you, but I've got to tell you, when you're not doing something, please listen to what I'm saying, because I'm only doing it for your good, and don't take offence at it. You're a great person, but you've got to do this, and I demand you to do this, and if you don't, we're going to take you off the ground, and we'll put you back on, and if you keep making the same mistake, we'll take you off. Please listen to what I'm saying. That's what a coach does. He communicates with his players. He gets them to play for them, not in spite of them. Yep. And that's what, when your coach sits down and tries to get a job, he fills out a form about care of duty and what he's done and where he's been in the past. I reckon anyone could coach a football club. Which is why I say right now, and people will have a go at this. I think the best coach in the AFL is Ross Lyon. Good. That's what I think. Yep. I think Chris Scott has an amazing record. I think he's had a lot of destination players go. He's had a lot of players go back to that footy club. So he's had good lists, but he's also rebuilt on the go. They continually compete for finals and also grand finals. So I think Chris Scott's been amazing. But the one coach that continues to get the best out of his lists has always been Ross Lyon. He's getting the best out of a list now that I don't think is anywhere near other lists. And for whatever reason, he's been up in 3 grand finals, Sam, in time and hasn't won one. So he's considered a failure. And yet you have other coaches that have won grand finals but won prelims by less than a kick. They're considered legends. I just think Ross Lyon he gets the best out of his team. Good. And they love him. But guess what? They play for him. That's right.
They play for him. Some might play in spite of him. There might be some that play in spite. The one thing about a senior coach, you're not going to be liked by everyone. This is why some assistant coaches that become senior coaches don't work out, because you know what everyone loves? Everyone loves the assistant, because you know why? The assistant coaches are nice to everyone.
He sucks.
They're not the one that are making the tough calls. Then they get a senior job and they find out, oh, now I've got to make a couple of tough calls. Some players won't like me. I've got to drop him. I've got to do this. It's getting that balance, and I think Ross Lyon does it the best.
I've got 2 things.
Gets a bad rap, Ross Lyon.
Good. Very sensible comments, only behind my extraordinary sensible comments. And now I've got 2 things. First of all, can you tell me this? Didn't it used to be when the ball was bounced in the centre or thrown in from a boundary, if you were in the ruck and grabbed it and were caught, that
holding
was
the ball.
Well, yes. Now everyone just grabs the ball out of the centre as though it's a mark, and then they get caught, they get tackled, then they throw it up again. Yep. Where's that rule gone? I've told you about the line. When you go across the line, you're not meant. That's why the line's there. And I noticed an umpire wearing a fucking golf cap, wearing a cap, umpiring. Did you see him? Sunglasses and a cap. What is going on, Wayne? The umpiring is disgraceful. It is shocking, the umpiring. All the obvious free kicks pick themselves out.
You know what? I don't blame. I think it's gone on. No,
don't give them some slack.
It has gone on. It has gone on too long, and I was one of the worst umpire
berators
that the game has
critics.
seen. while I was playing, and my time in the media, I've also haven't been too kind.
Why?
I just think because
you're objective.
No, I'll tell you why. Because I think what has happened and what continues to happen is the AFL keep changing bloody rules, and the umpires are so confused, and there is so much grey. No, there is so much grey. Not only it's the toughest game in the world to umpire for a start because of the grey in the game and the interpretation in the game. So then we change all of these. Oh, did you put that on deliberately? Did you put those crickets on, or is that an actual? Oh, good. I thought you were winding me up then.
No, I wouldn't. What am I doing, Sue?
The umpire, Sam, the umpires have the most
Sorry, Wayne.
difficult game to umpire, and they keep changing the rules, so it just makes it more difficult for them to do their job. So I give them an out, and I blame the rule makers. They're the ones to blame for this because you can
Where's
be
the umpire advisor?
Hey,
you cut them too much slack. How simple is it?
It's not the umpire's fault. It's the
It is the umpire's fault.
It's that they keep changing the rules on the umpires. The poor umpires get there on a particular week. You know, they even get instructions. And Dennis Pagan used to, albeit we used to play most Friday night games, but watch the first Thursday night game. And this is a tip to all clubs, all players, and I'm sure coaches and everyone tell them this anyway. Watch the Thursday night game. You'll see the trend of the way the umpires are going to umpire for that particular weekend. And you know what? The next weekend it might be something completely different.
So this is on the umpires. So I think I did notice that they get instructions. They've now started to not pay the really short kicks. Did you notice that?
Good. Yeah, some games.
Fantastic.
Some games.
So Wayne, when two people go for the ball, there's a virtual free kick every time someone goes from the ball. If a backman comes to spoil the forward and reaches across his shoulder to punch the ball and makes contact with the top of his shoulder, the umpires are disgraceful. They do not allow a contest. No. They do not allow people to spoil. What about kicking out of bounds on the full? The bloke dribbles the ball down from 50 metres and it happens to roll out of bounds. Out they come. I mean, they are... Do not umpire with common sense.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I will say it. I'll say it down the barrel with my mole. I feel sorry for the defenders in the AFL right now.
Yeah.
They cannot even touch a forward. Do not compare, please don't compare the forwards of today with the forwards of yesterday or the day before, because I tell you what, forwards have never had it easier. They get that little chop of the arm, they get the little nudge.
That's what I'm saying,
It's a free kick. Tony Locker would have kicked 40,000 goals instead of 1,000 goals.
And why do the umpires pay that? That's on the umpires.
So I can't believe I'm saying it, but the defenders, Glenn Jakovic would be rolling. Yep.
The stuff
he would be saying,
the grief he gave you.
Steve Silvani, the great defenders, Matthew Scarlett, would be sitting there going, oh, I wouldn't want to be playing today.
And that's on. This is why the game is degenerated into just a pissy, non-contest, passive game of football, so that every time you go for a ball is a free kick, and you think, what is that? And that is on the umpires. If you can't judge that, if you have to give a free kick every time there might be a virtual free kick, that's why the game is disintegrated, Wayne.
Yep.
And you've agreed with everything I've said while trying to tell me I'm a dill.
No, I haven't said you're a dill.
Well, you have.
I've actually just gone stronger on the point.
Yeah. And I would love.
We do agree with parts of your philosophy on
the people who say the game's great. I'd love them to come in here. This is the commentators and the special comments people and say, "Oh no, it's fantastic." It's not. It's shit.
It's still the greatest game in the world because of the physicality, the athleticism of the game.
Physicality?
Yeah, well, they
say, "Oh, he backed into the pack. Isn't he courageous?"
It's still physical in a running capacity. It's still physical in being tackled, getting up again, running 15 Ks a game. That physicality of the game is still why it's it's a unique game that we play. There's a lot of grey in it. I've given the umpires an out, but I will say that the way that defenders are being adjudicated right now is very, very tough for them to do anything whatsoever. And that's because the AFL want big scores.
Finally, Wayne.
Yes.
There's a man called. Sue told me, she tells me this every other week. I did not realise Channel 7 didn't televise the football on Saturdays.
No,
because of some agreement.
And what a joke! So Saturday, unless you have pay TV, you cannot watch football on a Saturday.
That's it. So someone texted me and said Gout was running at Melbourne, the South Melbourne Stadium here.
He ran second.
So hang on. So I said, it's on Channel 7. So I turned over to 7. I thought, why aren't 7 televising the football? And
no footy.
Sue said, I've been telling her that for 3 weeks. So I watched Gout, and the cameras are on him, and he's a young lad, and he's about to be the next Carl Lewis in the world. And he lines up on the blocks, and there's a bloke called, I can't think of his name. He beats him.
Yeah.
He beats him. And I thought, holy shit, who is this man? I've never heard of the bloke that beat him. And where's his name? I had him written down here. Yeah, someone. And so someone then said to me, you wouldn't believe it, the ABC have done a whole thing on that meet, and they never mentioned the man who won. They said he came second and what a great effort and he's going to be a star. You can't make this shit up. And I thought, we've turned on Bruce McAvaney.
He's a legend.
He is. And he said, Gout, and they never showed anyone else. Who?
Lachlan
Kennedy. Yeah. Someone said, would it be possible to mention Lachlan Kennedy's name that beat the great Gout? No, not one. I thought, oh, Jesus, we are fucked, honestly, seriously. Oh, shit.
Hey, he's 16, I think.
He's 17.
17.
That's right.
Okay, well, he's 17.
But hang on, Wayne. He was meant to be.
No, and he still will be.
He might well be.
Yeah.
He might well be.
No, but I get your point. And
then they did a whole doco on the ABC about him.
It's like when you watch a game of footy and there's the favourites, are getting beaten, and the commentators continually talk about the team that's being beaten by the underdog, and you go, well, how about talk about the team that's actually winning at halftime rather than the team that you thought was going to be winning at halftime. That might be a good segue into something more interesting for the fans to listen to. Call it as the game is being played, not on how you thought it was going to be played.
Well, Wayne, I had so many more things I want to talk about. We're not going to talk about it anymore because we've gone for 50 minutes with the doc. And just one final thing I saw, there was this got me. Could talk about reaching for the stars. There's a washing detergent who I don't even know what it was. It might have been Omo, might have been...
Omo.
Was it
I
Omo?
think we use coal power.
Well, I can't even remember.
Omo. I've used Omo.
And it said that there's the ads come on about washing and how clean it is, and it said they are the laundry partner of the AFL. The laundry partner.
Oh, Omo. It is Omo,
Is it?
I think it's Omo.
Omo are the laundry partner of the AFL. Talk about clutching at straws. What would that mean? That the AFL use Omo in their washing machines?
If anyone wants a tip on how the shirts are very white and all of that sort of stuff, you know what? Nappy sand. Nappy sand is the key to washing, Sam.
Put it all with all the nappies, with all the shit in the nappies.
It's just called nappy sand. And I tell you why, Sam. So you get the coloured nappy sand and you can get the white, for whites. And I tell you what I do, I'm a soaker. You got to soak them for days. You soak it. Don't just soak it for a couple of hours. Soak it for days. Put it in. Soak it. Soak it. When you think you've soaked it, soak it another day. Then wash it, and it'll come out spick and span.
I tell you what, you never ever cease. I think you never. This is the big brutal. Fucking vicious bon vivant who's fought more people outside street fights and pubs and has belted the living shit out of most of the Australian community, now talking baby shit with Ben Forom about how kids lie on your stomach, and you bloody said you mentioned all your kids and and now you're talking about nappy sand. That's just about
so don't worry about Omo. Get nappy sand and soak.
All right.
Soak.
Well, it's been a very sad day just as far as Ben. Ben,
Yes,
I think he's been nobbled by 9. They said, why are you appearing with that fuckwit?
He's not gone forever. Just don't get too...
You're the only man that'll get him back.
He'll come back. He
All
said
right.
he's going to come back.
Well, it's been good.
Thank you, Samuel. hey, good luck too. You're off to Perth. Good luck over there.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Yeah, righto. All right. Well, that's it. Now, what have I done? I'm fucking... Oh, Jesus, you've staggered me today. What am I pressing? Which one? Which one? This one. That's it.